Hello, welcome. I'm glad everybody can join. I know there were some duplicate links that were sent out. Hi, everybody. I'm BJ, and we're going to be talking about Final Cut Pro here within the for the next about 45 minutes or so. I'm just going to give another second for other people to join in case anyone had the wrong link. If somebody can in the chat, go ahead and tell me you can hear me okay, so I can make sure my microphone's good. And that's not a good sign because no one's putting anything in the chat. So let's see here. Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. Just wanted to make sure we were still working. So obviously, chat. This is a pretty quick webinar here where it's a lot. It's pretty much me talking to you as opposed to talking with. But if you do have any questions or anything, throw them in the chat. My setup here is I've got the computer that the link doesn't work. Okay. All right. And so you got it. Okay. So you're here. Good now, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know there was an issue with a couple of different links getting sent out, but I'm glad you're here now. And we are recording this too. But anyway, we have the chat working. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Like I said, my setup here is, and people are definitely joining now, so that's great. My setup here is I've got the computer that I'm working on Final Cut. I've got another computer where I see what you're seeing and all of you in the chat. And I definitely will be looking up at that chat. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in there and we'll get to them. So what are we going to be talking about today? Some kind of like power tips in Final Cut. So we're going to use metadata and we're going to rename a whole bunch of clips at once. We're going to look at the difference between keywords and smart collections. Also doing some three-point editing, back-timed editing, looking at roles, briefly looking at color correction and how we can save some of those effects. And we're also going to get into motion. And if we have time, I've got a couple of bonuses. But like I said, this is one to many as opposed to going through this nice and slowly and all working on projects together. That is available. And I just wanted to show you these because you go to the FMC training, as you know, you found this course. There's a course in motion, and we're going to touch on motion a little bit. But more importantly, you type in Final Cut. There are all these different classes for Final Cut. This particular class is running next week, and I'm teaching that. So this just scratches the surface. We really go into detail with it when we hit the class. And we have, like I said, we have projects that we work together on as we go. So, all right, let's dive into the class. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm going to open up Final Cut here. And what I have is I've got our library, which is a webinar at today's date, a smart collection folder, and I have a keyword collection folder in my event and all these different keyword collections. And then I've got just some clips here in the timeline. And oh, by the way, anyone know what those lines are in the title? They show up there and they show up there. Any thoughts on what they are? This is pretty easy to tell too, because it's the same clip twice. That is the new duplicate selection. So dupe detection, essentially, which is one of the new features inside Final Cut Pro. Now, how do you actually see that? Well, you can go up to View, and right now I have it on. So it's called duplicate ranges. We don't need those. Duplicate ranges, I'll turn them off and they go away. But if I have a big, long project, I can, if I want to see if I've mistakenly maybe used a clip twice, that's how I can tell. One of the ways I can tell, go up View, Show Duplicate Ranges, and then we have those hash marks up there in the title. So one of the new features that are pretty cool in Final Cut. So I'm going to look at applying a custom naming preset, essentially applying a specific range of names and a naming convention to multiple clips at once. So if I look in my event here, I've got a lot of different clips broken down into different groups. I'm going to look at these coffee clips, the keyword collection with that key, coffee. And when I see this, I see that they're all clips based on coffee. And it's a vignette that we're working on filming coffee. And I have my audio skimming turned off, but I've got my regular video skimming turned on here as well. So it'd be great if I could name all these to a convention that I would like. And I can do that by using the info inspector. And so the way it works, let's select a clip. I'm going to go to the info inspector. By the way, that's the one with the I right here. And I'm going to go to apply custom name, and I'm going to go to edit. And when I do that, it brings up this HUD here. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a new name. Let me just bring some more people into the class here. So to do that, I'm going to go to the bottom left corner and this plus sign. I click on that, and I'm going to call this, let's just call this custom info. And hit enter. And then I'm also going to drag it to the top. So it's the very top one, and that'll come into play a little bit later. So great, I've got this new naming preset, but what can I actually name this? So these are all about coffee clips. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my format, and I'm going to click on this token and delete it. Just hit delete. And since they're all about coffee, I'll just type coffee. And then I'm going to put a space bar after that. And now I can drag these other tokens down here from the bottom area up onto that top area. So I've removed the custom name, but maybe I want to drag a counter. So I drag that counter token up there. And then the important part about it is I'm going to put another space after that. And that'll become, you'll see why we want to do that in just a minute. And if I look other, maybe I'll take the clip date, drag that up there, do another space, and maybe the clip time. And put that up there, add a space after that. I look down, oh, maybe let's add some more people. Maybe we add the manufacturer of the camera and put that in there. And then also what I'll do is I'll go ahead and change the number of digits, and I'll make it 2 digits. And if you see right below, this is kind of what the naming convention is going to look like. So it's going to be coffee. I've got a counter, and I've got the date, and I've got the time, and then the manufacturer. So I'm going to click OK. And I do that, nothing happens. It's still, everything is still the same. And that's because we created it, but we haven't actually applied it yet. So now to apply this, I'm going to go ahead and select all these clips. I'm just going to Command A to select them all. I'm going to go back to my info inspector. It says apply custom name. I'll click that. And now look what's on top. It's the one we just created, and it's on top because we dragged it to the top. So if I select custom info, now look what happens. All of our clips are renamed, and we can see that probably a little better. I'm going to move this down so I can get out of Zoom. I could zoom things out of the way. I can see over here in my list view, well, there's coffee, the counter, the date, the time, and the type of camera that was shot with. So just like that, we renamed all of the different clips at one time. That could be really handy based on maybe keyword collections of clips like we did here. Or if you have a specific camera, you want to name them all of the clips that came off the certain camera the certain way. And so that's how we did that. And again, to recap on that, we just go to the info inspector, edit, custom name. We created it here by just dragging tokens up here that we wanted to name it by. I created a new one, by the way, down here at the plus. I clicked OK. I'll click cancel here now. Then I selected all the clips and I applied it. Just like that. So that's a great way to batch rename everything at once. So that's good, but there are other things that we can do with these keyword collections. And a lot of people create keyword collections. Some editors use smart collections. But what is the difference between those keywords and the smart collections? So again, let's just look and see some of the things I have here. I've got all these different keyword collections based on footage that I've imported into my project. I'm going to twirl down my library smart collections. And I've got these smart collections that are created here, that Final Cut created for me. And the goal is to really show the difference between a keyword collection and a smart collection. And then we'll go ahead and create some smart collections. So keyword collections, which are the ones with the key, they are different in that they can only have clips added to them if we manually add the clips into those collections. Smart collections, they're dynamic. So we don't actually drag clips into the smart collections. They're automatically added based on filters that we set up. So I'll show you how we do that here. I'm going to go ahead and in my webinar event here, I'm just going to twirl this up now just to keep things organized. And what I'm going to do is I know that I've got some audio files in here. I'm just going to scroll down so we can see them here. There they are at the bottom. I'm going to search for them just so that they're the only thing here. Those are called tears of joy. So I'm just going to type tears. And there they both are. And what I want to do is I'm going to select them and I'm going to hit Command K. And that's going to bring up our keyword editor. And they already have some keyword tokens applied to them. That's fine. We're going to leave them just as it is, but I'm going to add one. And this will also create a new keyword collection. I'm going to call these audio files. So just audio. And hit enter. And you see we have a new token that appears, and we also have a new keyword collection that shows up as well. Command K to close that. Oh, hang on there. Command K to close it. There we are. And if I look in my audio keyword collection, there they are. Now I'm looking, and all of a sudden, everything else is gone. What happened? Well, the reason why we don't see them anymore, we see them here because they had that, those were keyword collection or keywords also applied to these clips. But the reason why they're gone from all the other clips are gone here is because in our search field, I still have tiers there. So if I close the search field to clear it out, now all the clips are back there. They were never gone. They just searched and organized for it. So great. So now I have these two clips here, these audio keywords. That's exactly what I wanted to do. But I'm going to go ahead and look at this smart collections too. I'm going to twirl this down. And in the smart collection, I'm going to select the audio only collection. And notice it's the same thing. Okay, they match exactly. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to go back over and I'm just going to click on my FMC webinar event and I'm going to hit Command I to import. And there's this helicopter start idle takeoff that I have on my desktop. And I'm going to go ahead and import that. And here it is right here. That's what I want. And if I click on my audio, if I click on my keyword collection, it's not there, my audio keyword collection. But if I click on my audio only smart collection, there it is. And that's the difference. In smart collections, audio only, there are rules set up where they automatically add the clips to the smart collection. I can't just drag this into that smart collection. For keyword collection, I have to drag it in. That's the way it gets in there. I have to somehow apply that keyword token onto that clip in order for it to make it into that keyword collection. And I can also delete things out of these keyword collections. I'm not actually deleting the clips. I'm just taking them out of the different keyword collection. So that's cool, but we can go deeper with smart collections. So I'm just going to go ahead and click back on our webinar event and look through some of these other clips. We know we've got these audio clips. Looks like we've got some interview clips here. And again, I have the audio skimming turned off so that you can hear me a little better. And just looking up, well, it looks like there's a lot of B-roll that we have here, which is great. So it would be great if I could make a B-roll smart collection to show all of our unused B-roll. And so let's actually do that. Let's go ahead and select the library. And now these are the smart collections that are already made. I want to add another smart collection. And the way to do that is right here by opening up this little HUD icon. And it says search for clips by a combination of criteria. And it pops up this HUD. This is our smart collection hub here, HUD. And what we're going to do is I'm going to add a rule. I do that right here. And for this rule, I'm going to go ahead and select used media. Now, notice what happens before I click this. Just watch what happens over here because it updates in real time. All of a sudden, all the clips are gone with the exception of the 3 that I have in my timeline right now. So, okay, so we're on the right track, but we wanted to find the unused B-roll, not the used B-roll. So I'm going to go ahead and change this from used to unused. And again, watching how it updates in real time over here. That's good. Let's go ahead and create that smart collection. I'm just going to click on new library smart collection. And now we have this untitled library smart collection over here. I'm going to call it unused B-roll. And this is good. This is off to a good start. As I look through these clips, that's all B-roll. Oh, no, this isn't B-roll. these are interview clips, and it looks like we have some audio down here too. Okay, well, we don't want those in there. That's not B-roll. So how do I edit this? Well, to edit it, just double click on it, and it pops up the HUD again. And what we're going to do is we need to remove those interview clips. So I've got the HUD popped open here, and I'm going to add another rule. And I'm going to choose keywords on this rule. And from include any, I'm going to change this to include all. And there is a bug in Final Cut. Notice how I am now seeing in my browser clips, but I'm also seeing no items match the criteria. Don't worry about it. It still is updating for us. It's just this weird quirk, and I'll show you how we can get around that in just a second. So I'm back over here, and I have included all on there. Now, I don't want to go through here and deselect all of these. What I can do is just do it all at once. This drop down right here, uncheck all. And notice uncheck all, they all went away. The only one I'm really interested in is interview. And again, it's not updating in real time. It is updating in real time. It's just not showing it in real time. We'll take care of that in just a second. So, okay, so we have this set up now where we have selected our keywords and we're including include all and interview. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to change this to does not include any. Now, what should happen over here on the left, and of course it's not updating, is we should have all those interview keyword collection or interview clips taken out. So how do we see if that actually happened? I'm going to close this library and I'm just going to jump onto another smart collection and then jump back on ours. And when I do that, notice that they are all gone. I don't know what's going on inside Final Cut, why it does that. I've submitted a bug report, but it continues to do it. So great, we're on the right track with one big exception here. We still have these audio files. So let's go ahead and double click on this again, and we'll add yet another rule. And this one will add media type. And I have to drag down a little to see this here. Media type is video with audio. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to change this to audio only. And that's exactly the opposite of what we want, because now these are our audio clips. So I'm going to change this to is not. And I'm going to close this out. And when I do that, look what we did. We have a B-roll collection now of these clips. We never keyworded any of them as B-roll. We don't have any keyword collections, but we set this up as a smart collection. And by the way, notice the clips that are not in there. In addition to our audio and interview, these three clips down here are not there because this is unused B-roll. So that's pretty cool. That's really powerful with smart collections. And again, you can make as many smart collections as you want. How to do that, again, right here is where you start. This is the one we have set up right now, but we can make a new one based on rules. We can delete these rules, new library smart collection, and you're up and running. So good. Let's look a little bit at roles and lanes inside Final Cut. So roles is really, it's just another way to organize your clips. Organization is so important, especially the bigger project that you have. The more you can organize, the easier it is to find things, right? So you have two types of roles. You've got your video and your audio roles, but there can also be sub roles. And there are multiple ways to assign or edit your roles. So let's just go over a few of the ways. One of the way to get to the role, if I just control or right click on a clip, assign video roles, edit roles, and it pops up this HUD. I'm going to close that because that's just one way. So another way to do it, you can go up to the modify menu, and you're at the modify menu, then you can go down to edit roles, pops up that same HUD. I'm going to cancel again. You can do it through the timeline index, which is right here. And if you're not familiar with what the timeline index is, if I click on it, it's got everything in our project, which right now is, or in our timeline, which is really short. It's consisting of 3 clips and 2 gaps here. And it also, you see, we have those hash lines here to show us that 2 of these clips are the same thing. However, I can do it here as well. Roles, edit roles. I'm going to cancel out of that one because the other place you can do it is over here in the inspector. And before I do that, I want to show one other place, I believe. And there's, yep, you can click on the clips in the timeline. Now, this is an important differentiation. If I click on the clip in the timeline and add a role, that is going to be for this clip, not the clip in the browser. If I click on that same clip in the browser and add the role there, it's going to apply to everywhere I use this clip. So if I wanted to just make it one clip right here, a role right here, I could right click on this, control click on it rather, edit roles, and that would be for that particular instance of the clip. If I wanted to do it for every instance of that clip, I'd do it over in the browser. So what is it? So let's show you. I'm going to do it in the browser, control click, and assign video roles. And we go to our edit roles again. And this brings up our role HUD. And this is where we can add roles. Or we have these other roles that are already here. So if I expand this out, I see right now I only have video role. We'll change that in a minute. Audio role. Let's say I want to add an audio role. Let's just call this natural sound. And I'm happy with that brown color. You do have a limited choice of other colors that you can choose if you want to. And to get to that, you just hover over the bar, and then you have this little color swap right here. And if you hover over it, it also tells you have the tooltip there, change role collector, role color rather, excuse me. So great, I have that here, and I've just added that natural sound audio role. I'm going to click apply, and nothing happens. Let's look for, if I go to my audio only smart collection, and I'm going to actually apply that to this helicopter clip. So I right click on it and I go back there again, assign audio roles. I see my new natural sound. I click on it, and I've now applied that to that clip. Now, why is that important? Later on, maybe I just want to see my natural sound audio, and I can go ahead and pull up that particular role, and I can maybe apply an effect to it, or whatever I need to do. Maybe I'm just exporting by certain roles. We can do all of that with roles. So again, it's another way to organize. But we have all that unused B-roll, so let's look at that. So here it all is. I first would love to create a B-roll sub-role, and I can do that by going back to our role editor. So I'm right-clicking and assign video roles, edit roles, and I could add a video role, or I'll just add a sub-role here. And we'll call this B-roll. And click apply. Now, again, nothing happens yet. So I'm back in my B-roll smart collection. I'm going to select it all. I'm going to go back in again, right-click, assign video role, B-roll. Now, it doesn't change color like the audio did. However, I do know that it's assigned because if you've been paying attention in the info inspector, look now, there it says B-roll. So all the clips had that B-roll sub-roll applied to it. So that's really, really scratching the surface on roles. But again, all about organization, and Final Cut gives you a lot of powerful ways to do that. So good, let's move on and let's look at a brief color correction workflow. One of the things you see a lot in TV is that bleach bypass look, where it kind of you use it for flashback scenes or maybe to add drama to your shot. The way they used to actually do this is through a chemical process on actually doing it on film. We can recreate that digitally in the color area of Final Cut. Final Cut has a workspace made easier to do specifically for color grading. And you can get to the workspaces, window, workspaces, and I'm going to choose color and effects. And when I do that, a few things happen. So first of all, it brings up the tools it thinks will be very helpful for me for color grading. First of all, I see my scopes in a 4-up display. I also have my effects already loaded. And effects, you can turn them on and off right here. I'll leave them on. And this happens to be the light category of effects. Let's click on all so we see all of the video effects here. And of course, there are audio effects further down, but we're doing color grading. You don't do much color grading on audio, right? So we have this, and it's a good start, but it's not my ideal workflow. I like seeing just 2 scopes. So, and again, I'm sorry, I have to move this down just slightly so I can see. So view, and maybe I select, I can do my scopes like that, or I can do them side by side, which is how I like it. And maybe I don't really want the vector scope. I want the Luma scope, but I want to see my RGB parade. So again, I switch to waveform, and then I can check RGB parade, but it's also the default. And that's good, but maybe I want to see more of up on top and less of down on the bottom. And maybe I want to enclose my inspector. And that's what I like. So this is good. I want to save this for future use. So I do that back at that same window tab. So Windows, Workspace, save workspace as. And I'll call this, I don't know, webinar color. Click save. So that's good. And now this is the workspace that I want to use to work with the rest of our project here. Let's say I had to go back to the default. Back to the default, but now I want to go back to color. So to go back, workspaces, webinar color, and it takes me right back. So that's really handy if this is to design any type of workspace that you want to work through. You can do that not just with the color workspace, but from anywhere, any other interface that you have set up like that too. So this is good. Now, back to our original thing about the bleach bypass look. So we have all these effects at the bottom, and I'm just going to do the search. I'm going to type bleach, and it comes up. And I'm going to apply this to the first clip. Just going to drag it on there. And I hover over the clip, and there it is. If I open up my inspector again, I can now edit this effect. Maybe I don't want it quite so high. I can pull it down, keep back up. I'll leave it up like that. And that gives me that bleach bypass drama look. And that's a good start, but that's not exactly what I want to do. I want a bleach bypass with a comic effect tied to it. Why? I'm sure there's a great case use to use this, but I'll show you what it looks like. So I'm going to clear that out, and I'm just going to type comic. And here's my comic basic. And I hover over this, by the way, and I can see what it looks like. If I try one more thing here to show you. Yeah, okay. So I hover over it and I see what it looks like. I want to apply that as well. I could double click, or I could drag it on there, and it puts it on there. And that's the effect. For whatever reason, that's the effect I'm looking for. And I'm going to use this effect multiple times. So if I'm going to use this multiple times, I don't want to drag this on each time. I could also copy the effects and paste it to multiple clips, but I just want to go ahead and save it as an effect. So if I want to do that, right below all of this in the inspector, save effects preset. And I'll leave it in the comic area, and I'll just call this comic bleach. And click save. And look what happens. There it is, comic bleach. Now I could take that and I could apply it to the next clip if I want to, or all the clips, and there it is. So that's a great way if you really tailor and customize an effect and you want to save it and use it on multiple clips. Right here in the bottom of the inspector, the video inspector, save effects preset, and you get that tooltip that helps you as well. I'm going to jump back to our default work setting, or default workspace, just because it is easier for me to see what I'm looking for. By the way, keyboard shortcut to get back to your default workspace is Command-0. That also gets you there. So if I were to go back, workspace, webinar color, and then I hit Command-0, there we are back. So good keyboard shortcut to know. So we're on the right track of what I'd like. I'm going to shift Z to fit everything on screen here in the bottom, my timeline onto the screen in the bottom. And I want to introduce this woman running in our bleach bypass world. And to do that, I'm going to add a lower third. Now, our lower thirds right here in our titles and generators sidebar. And so I'm going to jump into our titles generator sidebar, and I am going to click on lower thirds. Let's see if the one I want. I think this is the one. Yeah, I like this one right here. And I am just going to select it and I'll hit Q to connect it to the clip. I hover over it there. And if I double click on this, it automatically gets it ready for me to start typing on the first editable frame of where I'm going to type. So I'm just going to type woman. And then I'm going to click on description and change that to jogging. So now let's play over that. Okay, and it goes off. That's good. That's kind of where I'm going, but it's not exactly what I'd like. What I'd really like to see is I'd like to see the word jogging kind of go off to the top right of the screen. Well, I can't do that in any of the parameters I have over here in Final Cut. However, I can do it in Motion. So pretty much all of the graphics, all of these titles, generators, the effects, it's all been created in Motion, which is Final Cut's essentially sister program, the Motion Composite Editor. So if you're familiar, if you haven't gotten into Motion yet, but maybe you're coming from another NLE, this would be After Effects in Premiere's world or Fusion in DaVinci Resolve's world. How does all this work? Well, if I click on it and I right click, I see this open a copy in Motion. And when I do that, it's going to launch Motion for us. And I'm still here in Final Cut, but we see Motion launching. And one of the first thing any Motion editor will tell you is when you get into here, hit Shift-Z to fit this on screen. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just bring this back, my playhead right about here. Now, what we're looking at is this is Motion now, and these are the elements that are in my lower third. So if I were to check one of these or deselect one of these check boxes, it goes away like that. So that's fine. What I want to do is Motion has a whole bunch of behaviors that are already there inside of Motion. So you don't have to actually create them. You can just apply them and then tailor them to your liking. So I'm going to go to the basic motion behavior, and I'm going to go to the throw. And I put it on there, nothing happens. I can play this, and nothing happens. It looks just like what we have in Final Cut. That's because we've applied the behavior, and we can see the behavior here, throw, and we can also see it applied here, but we haven't told Motion what exactly we want to do with it yet. So what I want to do is that's going to throw the whole group because it's under the group. I don't want to do that. I said I just wanted to do the description. And I can drag this down to description. What I'm going to do is actually just delete it, select description, and apply the exact same thing again. Basic motion, throw. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my playhead back just a bit, somewhere right about there. And I'm going to launch Motion's HUD, heads up display. First, I have to move the zoom heads up display. There we are. And this brings up the HUD, and I'm going to tell Motion what I want it to do here. So I've got this circle, and in the middle right now, we can't see it yet, but this is an arrow pointed right at us. And I'm just going to click and drag the arrow maybe up like that. And as I do that, now if I play this, we'll play it out. Okay, that's not what I want either, is it? I mean, because it's not quite where it was supposed to be. So what we can do is, well, that's all right. For today's purposes, we're fine with where it is. This is kind of what I'm looking for now. I want to get this back over to Final Cut. And the way I do that, and I'll just call this throw, or I'll call it overlap throw since it was originally overlap. And I can choose the category I'm going to put it in. I will put it in lower thirds, and I'll save a preview movie, and I'll click publish. And if you're familiar with the background tasks in Final Cut, Motion's got it too, and it lives right here. So we're waiting for that to actually do something. And when it's done, it goes away. I'll jump back over to Final Cut. And now look, I have overlap throw right here. Okay, and there it is. So we round trip this from Final Cut into Motion, and we created what we want to do in Motion. We brought it back in here to Final Cut. So now I have to apply this. I'm just going to click and drag it down on top, and I'll replace it. And let's see how we have it now. It's a weird lower third, but that's what I'm looking for. So that's one way we can round trip to and from motion. If we have time, I know we started late. If we have time, I have something else we can do in motion. Let's keep going through what we're going to talk about next, which is the 3-point editing, and we'll also look at 2-point editing. And if we have a chance, we'll go back over to motion again for an adjustment layer. So, okay, 3-point editing. It allows us to use start and end points in either the browser or the timeline, and another editor point in the other area of the clip where we'd want to use to make our edit. So you only need 3 points to determine any portion of the source clip and place it where you want in the timeline. Final Cut infers that 4th edit point automatically. So in Final Cut, we can do this with an insert edit, a connect edit, or an overwrite edit. And with each of these, you can perform also back-timed 3-point edits where the end point, rather than the start point, is aligned in either the browser or the timeline, and you work backwards with it. So let's look at that and actually see that in practice here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to our videos, and I'm not looking for any sort of continuity in the timeline. I'm just looking to show how we would do it. So I'm going to jump out to this 3rd clip here. And this is where I want the clip to appear in the timeline. Let's say I want this helicopter clip, and I set an endpoint by hitting I, and I hit L there to move a little further out. And I'll just wait till he closes. And I hit K to stop, O. Okay, now I said we can do this as a connect edit, an insert edit, or an overwrite edit. Well, I'll hit Q for connect first. And there it is. 1st edit point, 2nd edit point, 3rd one was where it was in the timeline. So the same thing applies if I wanted to do that as an insert edit. So let's just use this next clip. So I, O, and then the shortcut for insert edit is W. And I can also do it right here if I wanted to. And that's exactly what happened. There are my 2 edit points there, and I have this one here. So that's your basic 3-point edit when I'm editing 2 of the 3 points in the browser and not the timeline. But this also works the other way around. So if I were to set in my timeline, I'll hit I for in, and I'll move over O for out. And let's say I want to put this helicopter from right here. I got my endpoint, and I hit, let's see, we've done a connect. Let's do a overwrite. And it overrode it right into the timeline. So that's if I set my in and out points here in the timeline. Another great way to do this, not in and out, but with range. If you're not familiar with the range tool, that lives right here. Keyboard shortcut R. So if I select that, and I'm going to try to keep that clip available for us to use later, and just say that's the range I want to do. Well, there's your in point and your out point by using the range tool. So I'll go up, I'll use that one right, I'll go here, I, and let's hit Q. And there it is based on the range. So even though I had more clip available up here, Final Cut stopped it based on the out point there in the timeline of the range tool. So we can do all that, but we can also do them going the other way. So back time, it's 3-point edit still, but rather than the start point, rather than matching up this with right here, it matches up this with where your playhead is in the timeline. So let's look at that. And the way you do that, by the way, is you just use a modifier key. And the modifier key uses Shift. So let's look and see how that works. I'm going to delete some of these so we don't get too messy. I'll go back to my select tool. And let's say I want to have an in point right here on these 2 people walking, and my out point is right here. And that's my range there. And what I'd like to do is let's take this helicopter clip, and I'll make my in point right here. Or I'm going to make my out point right there in this case. And we go back. And what I'm going to do here is, like I said, Shift Q. And it matched up the out point there with my playhead and went back toward the beginning. So again, you can do that both directions. You can do it forward and backward. Back timing, you need that Shift key. What if I wanted to do multiple edits? What if I bring multiple in portions of a clip in at once? Let's say I want that one, and then I go a little further over and Command Shift, right? Hang on. I'll tell you the right thing. Yeah, Command Shift I, and I'll move a little further over. I'll do Command Shift O. So I've got two selected there. Maybe I do a third one, Command Shift I again, Command Shift O, and then I put them all in at the same time. I hit Q, and there they all are in my timeline as connected clips. So that's if you wanted to do multiple ones. And I don't use the overwrite edit very often because I use the connected clip, but overwrite, the keyboard shortcut for that is D. So if I hit D, that's what happened there. I'll hit Shift Z to fit this all back on screen, and it threw it in based on where my playhead was, and it overwrote the remaining part of these walking clips here. So that's 3-point edit. What about a 2-point edit? So how do we do a 2-point edit? Well, the important thing is I can't have anything selected in my timeline. I also can't have anything selected up here in my browser. So I'm going to hit Option X to remove, select all, Command A, and then Option X. So I've got every in and out point removed. And it's going to basically make your edit from where your playhead is in the browser, where your skimmer is in the browser, and where the playhead is in the timeline. So if I bring this playhead back, and I want to insert this clip right there, and I hit Q, there it is. It's a connected clip. All right, so that's a little bit about 3-point editing, and then the bonus 2-point editing. And we do have a few minutes yet. I know I said we have about a 45-minute webinar. If you're good, we'll keep going to try to finish off these couple bonus things that I have for you. I wanted to really talk real quick about adjustment layers in Final Cut. So what are adjustment layers? So they're essentially empty containers in which you can add effects, transformations, color grades, and more. And you can have it apply to everything in the timeline. It's a way to apply multiple elements to multiple clips at once. Final Cut doesn't have an adjustment layer effect, but it can be done. It can be done in two different ways. One is we can make a compound clip. So let's say I wanted to add a black and white effect to everything here in this timeline. I'd want to make that a compound clip. I'm going to select all. I'm going to right click on any one of them, new compound clip, and I'm going to call this adjustment layer. When I do that and I hit enter, something happens. Everything is collapsed. Okay, all those clips are still there. They're still the same way we had them. It's just collapsed. Well, this is a great way to save on real estate too, right? And if I want to see this, I can just double click on it and open it back up. And if I want to get back, just hit the back arrow. So fine, I've got all these things here. I'm going to open up my effects, and I've got all. Let's see if I can find 50s. I think there's one called, 50s TV. I want to apply 50s TV. And I click on drag it, and now it's applied to everything in that compound. So I don't have to go back in there and apply every single that effect rather to every single clip. I can do it this way. I'm going to Command Z to undo that for a second. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and break apart this compound clip. And the way you do that, clip, and then you go down to break apart clip items. So now we're back to where we were. I'm going to Shift Z to fit all that on screen. And what I want to do is go back over to motion for a second. So Command Tab, get me back to motion. And I'm going to new, Command N for a new project here. And now that I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new Final Cut effect title. I'm going to close the HUD. We don't need that. Final Cut title. Everything is fine. Just going to double click on that. And now I've got this, I'm creating essentially a title inside of Final Cut, but I don't need a title. I just need a container of nothing. And so that's what I'm going to do. Leaving all the settings alone, I'm going to go delete this text layer. Just delete it, just like that. And I'm fine with it, just like that. So I'm going to send this back over to Final Cut. And I'll call this adjustment layer. And I'll save a preview movie, although there's not really anything to preview. Click, oh, hang on, I've got one already over there. So let's do that again. I'll call this adjustment 2. Sorry about that. I thought I had deleted it already. Publish, looking at my background tasks here in the bottom of the viewer. It's taking a minute. I'm going to jump over there anyway because we already have one done. So I'm going to go to my effects and I'll type adjustment. It's not going to be in lower thirds. Okay, so there's the one we just created. I can take that. And if I want to click and drag it down here, there it is. And now I apply that same 50s to that. It accomplishes the same thing. So if you're coming from Resolve or maybe Premiere and you have that adjustment layer, that's what that is. And that's how we create it here in Final Cut. We go over to motion. You essentially are making a title, but a title with nothing in there. And then we bring it back and we can put any effect that we want on there. So I have one more real quick thing, a little extra bonus that I want to show you. I'm going to delete that effect. I'm going to focus on right here, this lady running again, that second clip. And I'm going to Command plus to zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. And what I want to do is I want to put, let's see here. I'm happy with that. I've got the play at the beginning of the clip here. I'm going to go to my lower thirds and elements, and there's nothing there. And the reason why there's nothing there is because of we've got adjustment type there. What I want to do is I want to put these little speech bubbles next to her head and just have it stay next to her head. Now, all these things have shipped with Final Cut. They're all customizable in the inspector, more in depth in motion. We know all that already, but we want to go ahead and you figure to do that, we would make a connected clip here. We would just take this and drag it down here. But no, because when I do that, it stays there on the screen. It doesn't move with her. I don't want to spend all this time to keyframe it. So I'm going to Command Z that. And then what I do is I take this and I drag it onto the viewer over the woman and let it go. We are tracking inside of Final Cut. This is one of the new things that came out very recently inside Final Cut. It's their tracker. Now, nothing has happened. I need to tell Final Cut that I want to track it. So it's got this box, that's the tracking box, and I need to tell it to analyze. And very quickly, Final Cut analyzes this clip. And let's see how it did. I'll just hit play, spacebar. Oh, hang on. All right, didn't do badly, right? It's got pretty much where we wanted it, but or it's got what we want to do, not where we wanted it. So I need to move it. So I'm just going to click and drag. Let's move it up to about there. And notice how the lower third only is on part of this clip. That's okay because Final Cut tracked the entire clip. So I can drag this now for the entire clip, and I'll double click on it and I'll just type, "This is exhausting." And escape out of that. And as we play across, and we can, of course, go ahead and customize this a little more if we wanted to, but that is the new tracker inside of Final Cut. Now, if she was turned around, we could track her face. We can do a lot of other different things in here. We can track objects. We can track still objects on there. But that's just a quick overview of how the tracker works. Really cool. You just click on it. By the way, this works with effects too. 50s effect on her. Yeah, that looks kind of weird. But it should have worked. I don't think I need to analyze it again, but I will. Oh, we're off of it. Hang on. And so now we've got this 50s effect going along with her too. So again, I'm sure there's a case use to have that just like that. But so again, this is just kind of scrape the top of the iceberg here on all these different things. We go into this a lot more in depth in the actual Final Cut class. We have actual projects that we work through and we all do it slow paced together. The Final Cut class is coming up on Wednesday, and it is guaranteed to run if that's something you're interested in. And again, motion, there's also an advanced Final Cut class. Motion has classes as well. If motion graphics is your thing, then definitely look at that because that's a really, really powerful tool, especially if you become a Final Cut heavy user, then you want to learn a little bit more about motion too. So that's what I have. I'm sorry we had problems at the beginning. I have a few minutes for questions if there are any. If there aren't, I hope everybody has a great day, and hopefully we'll see you in the class next week.